Musibire muta, mwasibye mutya, amahoro, agandi, byaibo, habari gani, muraho, sangonini, kopango, odeo. For those of you who are wondering what that was, these are some of the various local greetings found in East Africa's diverse languages. Welcome to She Center, the female podcast, where I dive into the issues and experiences that affect women everywhere. I am your host, Resti Kansime, and I am passionate about creating a safe space for women to share their stories and triumphs. I want to thank you for tuning into my podcast, and I would love for you to join our community and stay connected with us beyond this episode. You can find us on Instagram at _SheCenter_podcast and follow us on Facebook at the She Center Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and hit that follow and like button on our social media to be part of the conversation. Welcome back to She Center, the female podcast. A special welcome to the new listeners who are joining this for the first time and watching this for the first time now that we are having full videos on YouTube. Thank you once again for tuning in, and to the loyal listeners who have been with me from day one. Thank you for giving this safe space to women to listen every week as we have explored the question, what happened to you? As I said last week, we are starting out a new question where we're asking, are you living in your purpose? Because I feel like there is a correlation between what has happened to us and what we are doing with our lives, and if we're living in our purpose. And as I mentioned last week in the episode where I introduced the topic, I did realize that every guest that I've been talking to has their different way. Like, purpose is relative. Everyone has different ways in which they describe the word purpose and how they're living out their purpose. But as we commonly know it, purpose is your why you're on earth, why you are in the room, why you are listening to this podcast right now. This could be someone just made me realize that there is purpose in every season. When you're combing your hair, when you're wearing makeup, when you're working as a hairdresser, when you're doing different things, there is a purpose in those things. And if you see it, you're able to live a very happy and fulfilled life. So starting off the interviews is my guest, who was one of the winners in my giveaway earlier on. I think a few weeks ago, I would say maybe a month or two ago. And her name is Alythia Turyatemba. Alythia is the Director of Communications and Public Relations at Vine Anchored Vessels Initiative in Uganda. This is focusing on, I think, mostly it's community-based, but it was something that her and her friends started while they were at the university during the pandemic. The pandemic did produce a lot of good things, I would say. So it is based in West Nile. We recently had a conversation with Premier Peace, who is also leading, she's the director, I think the founder of Nile Girls Forum. If you haven't listened to her episode, you can scroll down if you're listening to this. If you are, even on YouTube, I think you can listen to it. There's a lot of, all the episodes are on YouTube as well, on audio. Yeah, she talked about Nile Girls, how her organization is helping women, young girls who are getting early pregnancies. And once again, Alythia re-echoed this and said that this is a very, very big problem in the West Nile, where there are really, apparently the pregnancies, the early childhood, like early teenage pregnancies are so many, or not even just pregnancies, marriages where they're sending young girls off to get married. So Alythia mentioned a couple of things that I want to say, I want to point out before we get into our conversation. She said that when they started out with her friends, they were at campus and they made the trip because she is studying, I think, she was doing her bachelor's, and while they were doing their field work, she found that there's a lot of things that didn't make sense to her, how other people are living. I think it was in a camp in in Uganda in a refugees camp, and because of this, she was fueled to do more, and this helped her and her friends to come together and start something. And this what they're doing is more of a ministry. It's Christian based. Their organization is Christian based. They've partnered up with different churches and different organizations as friends, and they are discipling people and also skilling them while they are planning to build. Their goal is to build a godly ecosystem in the West Nile, and I think in many parts, as we will probably find out in the future. And she said while they were doing their research, the one thing that stood out to me is when they first went to the West Nile, they felt like they were going there, to do some charity, to help some people and give them some things. But then she said that when they came back, they realized there's so much more that was behind the scenes of giving, and their research led them to finding out different poverties, which they say these are poverties that they discovered that human beings can have that can deter them from living a happy and purposeful life. And she said there's poverty of the spirit, poverty of the mind, poverty of community. And these are some of the things that she is going to explain as we go through this episode. And she also said that while they were doing that, they figured that they need to reconcile people not only to God, but to the community. Because if the community is not together, then there's a lot of, it holds you back. Collective action is very important. And also there's a reconciliation of self. Some people are really not, they're not happy with themselves. They need to really be reconciled. And also the reconciliation with creation, to be able to love your creation, to love what God has created. So this is a really good conversation. Alythia is doing amazing work, and I cannot wait for you guys to jump into this episode. Please tune in until the end to hear more about this, and tune in again next week to hear many more episodes. Enjoy the episode. Hi Alythia, how are you doing?
Hi Rusty, I'm good. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm happy to have you join me. We've talked about this for a while, and I am glad that you're the first person that I'm recording in this new season.
I'm excited.
And
I'm so excited.
me too. And I'm happy that I'm recording someone who was among the first people that, among the people who won the giveaway gifts.
Yeah,
How did that feel?
It's amazing. The skincare is just amazing. As you can
Oh,
see,
I'm
we're glowing.
happy.
We're glowing.
Yay. Yay. That's good to know. Okay, so I'm glad that the first person I'm interviewing is someone who has been listening to the podcast. We are making a shift from what happened to you. And now we are moving into the future.
Exactly.
And I want to know in this new season if my guests are living in their purpose. And if not, how are we as women navigating that? Because there's a person I reached out to. At first, I just wanted to ask people, I was like, yeah, tell us about your purpose. And someone was like, I'm still navigating my purpose right now. I'm not quite sure. It's changing in season. So I'm like, okay, I need to shift the question and not just assume that just because everyone is doing something they're passionate about or something they love, that they're
Yeah.
living in their purpose. So that's why I figured I could just generalize it to, are you living in your purpose? And I'm exploring the evolution of purpose and the impact in women's personal and professional journeys. So
Yeah.
discussing challenges, growth, and community support, because previously we were talking about what happened to you, and I did hear you also listen to a lot of stories where women were sharing about their evolution and everything that they went through, all the struggles, the resilience, the transformation. So all that reminded us, or reminded me personally, that the struggles that we go through, they shape who we are today.
Yeah.
So that's why I want to reach out to particular people who I see in the community are doing certain things. Like, it doesn't need to be something so big. It can be as simple as you're a hairdresser, or whatever it is that you're doing. Some people find purpose in it. And if not, is there something that you can maybe share that has, previously been fulfilling, where you felt like you were living in your purpose or not? So yeah, that's basically what we're trying to explore.
Yeah.
And my first question to you is, do you feel that you're living in your purpose right now? And how has your journey shaped this sense of purpose for you? Oh, you can also
Well,
start by introducing yourself, by the way.
hi, my name is Alythia Turyatemba. I
Mm-hmm.
am the director of the director of public relations and communications in
Mm-hmm.
Vine, in an initiative called Vine Anchored Vessels Initiative. It is
Mm-hmm.
in West Nile, Uganda. We are in Madiokolo, and our purpose there is to disciple and skill people and to build a godly ecosystem in the country.
Mm-hmm.
So we are starting
Okay.
with West Nile because it's one of the most hit and almost abandoned areas in Uganda. Once you
Yeah.
cross Murchison Falls and you
Mm.
enter West Nile, it looks totally
Yeah.
abandoned. It's like they're in their own country. Our vision is to build a godly ecosystem, a kingdom ecosystem guided by
Mm.
God. Because we have seen, if you look at the news in Uganda, you see every sphere of influence, whether it's media, the arts, governance, there's something wrong. And we believe if we can disciple people and train them, we believe that we'll fight things like corruption. And I believe that in every season of life there's a purpose. I don't believe
Yeah.
like there's one main purpose a person has. I believe that in every season it changes. From
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
as
True.
a single person you'll be having your
Mm-hmm.
personal purpose, and when you get married you find there's a family purpose. And I've seen that with my parents.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so I believe right now, the season I am in, I am where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
how we started was we at campus, and it was
Mm-hmm.
COVID time, and we had seen the rise in teenage pregnancies, girls being married off by their parents because they were broke. You find stories of girls who were sold into marriage, and she's like
Yeah.
14, and her dad was given a crate of beer to
Wow. Like
yeah,
that's how what I am
he
as a
got a
girl.
crate
Oh
of
my
beer,
God.
and here is a 14-year-old being shipped off to marry a 40-year-old. And others were being defiled by their parents or uncles or neighbors. And COVID time
Mm.
was really bad for extra
Yeah.
people in
True.
the rural areas. So we
Mm.
sat down and we looked at the most hit place in Uganda. That was West
Mm.
Nile. There's a lot of
You and
refugees
who?
that yeah, there's a lot of refugees there. We have there's the Rhino camp, there's the Bidibidi camp in Yumbe, and they and you generally West Nile is used as a refugee hub for Uganda. Either
From
West
where?
Nile
Where are
or
most of these refugees? Where do they come from? Most of the
most of
refugees.
them come from South Sudan.
Okay.
When
Okay. Yeah.
they're running from the wars, then you can see some that crossed in from DRC because West Nile
Mm.
also bought DRC, and they're just there. The government has given them places in different parts of West Nile to stay. So you find there's a lot of wrangles, you find maybe a refugee attacks a local. There are so many things that happen in there. And so we decided to do kind of a research on how to help them. So we started with let's
I
go
want
and
to
this,
ask from Alethea,
yeah.
who is we? I'm sure
We
someone
as
out
Vine
there listening
Anchor,
would like to know. Okay, no, I just want to know, like you said, we were at campus. Are you doing this as a group of friends? Are you doing this with your
yes.
family? I guess that's what I'm trying to ask.
I'm working with a group of friends. One of them is
Mm.
a daughter of the former bishop of West Nile,
Ah,
and she
okay,
has grown
okay,
up
okay.
there. So,
Okay, okay.
so when we went there, we were like, you know what, we're going to disciple them,
Mm,
and then we're going to
mm,
skill them. But
mm,
later on we realized we were actually hurting them because we'd
mm.
come with donations and all these things, and so every time they'd
Yes.
see us, they'd know we're bringing them stuff. They'd only come for the stuff.
Mm,
And we didn't see it going anywhere, and we're not dealing with the root cause of the issue. So when we went deep down into like the community and we sat down and looked at what was wrong, we realized the
yeah,
deepest issue is poverty there, and not just
yeah.
poverty in just material things. There are like So we decided to
Poverty.
do a research on
Everything.
what is
Yeah.
poverty exactly.
Mm.
So we realized a human being can have 4 different types of poverty. One
Okay.
is the poverty of spirit, meaning they have no God, they don't know God, they don't know who God is, and
Yeah.
therefore they'll just act out in their natural nature. Whatever they want to do goes. Then there's the poverty of the mind. We met a man who has 30 acres of land but sleeps on his friend's veranda because he claims he has nothing.
Or because he has this whole societal expectation of what is
Yes.
riches. You have a land, you have,
You
I
have
mean, you
land,
have
you
like
have
TV, a car.
cows, you have
Yes.
everything.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so for
Yes.
him, he's like, I have this land, but there's nothing I can do. So for some people, their minds are locked in. They don't see their purpose in life, but they also don't
Mm.
see the value in themselves.
Mm.
So they are not able to develop. Then we have the poverty of community, where there's a lot of disunity. So I find like if I'm neighbors with you and I don't like you, I will not buy from you. And then you don't like another person, you won't buy from them. And so the community is just stagnant. No one is developing together. There's no unity in the development there. Then we
Wow.
move on to the poverty of stewardship or resource poverty. People don't know what to do with the resources they have.
They have like the other
Either they
man with the acres of land.
Yeah, they haven't been trained, they haven't been, some of them haven't gone to school. Those who have want to leave the area. They're like, if I go to school, I'm going to go to Kampala.
Yeah. Like
I
they're
don't
not
want to
thinking
be
about
this side.
staying. They're
Yeah.
not about thinking about staying and developing the place.
Yeah, so when you go to a
Yeah.
place like Madiokolo district, their district town looks looks worse than the trading center in Rukunji. They don't have an actual referral hospital. You don't see very many people. Very many of them either move to rural where their city is, or they come all the way to Kampala. They don't stay there. But also we realize there's a lot of witchcraft, and there's a lot of people are still deep into their culture, and not like the good side of culture where there's respect and whatnot. There's a lot of, women are not worth anything. They shouldn't be inheriting land. So you find a woman has either lost her husband, and then her brothers-in-law are taking over the land and she can't do anything. Or you find her husband's a drunkard, but he's in control of everything. So even the little money she makes, he'll take it. So when we sat down and prayed about it, we really prayed. We said in 2021. So we sat down, we prayed about it, and God told us He wants to build a kingdom ecosystem. And so we looked at what does a kingdom ecosystem look like.
Yeah.
So He gave us 4 objectives. He said it starts with reconciliation of all those 4 that I mentioned before. So
Yeah. Yeah.
reconciliation with God, reconciliation with yourself, reconciliation
Mm.
in the community, and then reconciliation with creation. Because God gave us creation to fulfill and
Yeah.
subdue, to have dominion over it, and be extremely wealthy. But also people have that notion of if you're Christian, you're poor. So once people see the reverends, the priests, they're like, those ones don't have money. And yet in the Bible, we can clearly see people who honored God were prosperous. If you look at the Old Testament, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, David, Solomon, all of them were prosperous. When you go to the
Yeah.
New
Yeah.
Testament, the disciples never lacked anything. So we need to change the mindset of people. So at first I was skeptical because at the beginning of my high school, I knew I wanted to be a lawyer. And I was like, I'm going to be a lawyer, I'm going to be a lawyer, I'm going to be a lawyer. So
Yeah.
S6 reaches and I didn't perform well. And I was heartbroken. I remember crying for my dad. And I had a really hard time in high school. So he told me, but you've done well. You have 2 principal passes. You can do anything else you need to do. Then he said,
Yeah.
actually, you can do a diploma in law and then you go and do the law degree afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I go to LDC in 2018 and I start my Law Development Center diploma. And as I'm studying the law, I realize this is actually not where I want to be. I don't feel
Yeah.
fulfilled
That's
in
what
it.
you wanted, but not what God wanted for you.
And I was like, this I don't feel like I want to be a litigator anymore.
Hmm.
And so I
Yeah.
told my parents and they said, okay, now what do you want to do? And I told them, I don't know. So
Yeah.
I sit down with a gentleman, he's called Elon Katweheyo. He helps young people from, he's a missionary from Life Ministry, and they help young people discover their purpose in God through trainings. You do tests on your personality, you do personality tests and all that.
Wow.
So so I sat down
That's
with him
cool.
and he told me, what, look at the things you like to do. What things do you do that don't feel like a lot of effort? So one
Yes.
thing I
Yes.
love to
Yes.
do is I love community service. I really do.
Yeah.
I like working
Yeah.
with people. I like being in the field with people and having a hands-on experience. And so I was like, I like people, I like children, I like babies. I was like, okay, so
Yes.
what could I study in line with
Mm.
helping people? So I go to church one day and my university, like I went to UCU, was having Thanksgiving. So they had brochures for all the courses, and I landed on the Human Rights, Peace, and Humanitarian Interventions course. And it was
Wow.
like my mind opened. I was like,
I know it was exactly what you
this
needed,
is
like the right
it.
word for answering your
Mm.
question.
I was like, this
Yeah.
is it. So I told my
Yeah.
parents. And of course, because everyone thinks that human rights goes with gay people, they're like, no, you're going to now go and stand for you're going to go and support the gay rights activists. Why? And
Mm.
everyone
Mm.
else telling me, you don't just want to get gay money. I'm like, there's more to I told them there's more to it than meets the eye. They're just the loudest. But there's everything, there's other things that are there. So my dad says, you know what? This is what you want? You're sure? Okay. Rule
Yeah.
number one, no retake. You must
Wow.
not get below a second class.
Wow. That's a high
So
expectation.
I was like, so I said, okay. I was like, you know what? I'm going to enter this course and start. So first semester happens and I see our lecturers are like, are you sure you want to be in this course? Because we're 30. And they said, if people are coming for this course, you have to be sure that this is what you want to do. Because some of the things you do will go against the government. Are you ready to be arrested? To protesting, speaking up for what is right. Are you ready to do that? And for me, because I had been bullied in high school, I knew what it's like to not have someone speak up for you and you having to speak up for other people as well.
Yeah.
And also because I volunteer with a lot of teenagers, you hear their stories, and it has opened my mind to actually helping people a lot. I want to make the world a better place.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
first semester happens and my course units are hectic. It's talking about
Yeah.
how the ethics of war and all these things. And I'm like, okay, the world is crazy.
Crazy. I know, right?
Crazy. I've been very sheltered. And I
Mm.
need to find a way to make the world a better place.
Mm.
So as we were studying, my dad looked at my course sheet and was like, okay, I'm now starting to see some sense. It's not, and now he was proud to tell people, Alythia does human rights. And I remember second semester before COVID hit, we went to Bidibidi. That's the first time I had been to a refugee camp and seeing things
Mm.
firsthand.
Mm.
Because everyone thinks a
Mm.
refugee camp looks like the ones abroad where you have a house and what. The first thing that
Yeah,
we
I've been to the one in Hoima. I
mm,
was like, wow.
so
Yeah.
the first thing we landed on was it was 12 hours to reach the refugee camp in a bus. Secondly, where to
Mm.
sleep. Finding where accommodation there. I know that school had organized something, but the accommodation, to find it, our hotel had no water. So we entered in the rain and we had to wait for them to collect rainwater for us. And of course, people went with their own expectations of the food that they're going to eat and whatnot. And me, I had already known, I'm going to this place, anything can happen. So I gathered my emotions and said, I'm going to go through these 2 weeks in this refugee camp and survive. The food was interesting. They pasted
That's a
everything.
good word.
They pasted everything. The deep fried chicken was pasted in Odi. The greens were pasted in Odi.
That's how
Ev-
they eat their food,
like
yeah?
they eat everything pasted. Yeah. And one of my friends
Interesting.
whose family goes to West Nile, she says sometimes they even
Mm.
can pest grasshoppers. I was like,
Oh
why?
no, why
Like,
torture the poor
why?
grasshoppers?
And she said it's because one, nuts are the most available thing there. So when there is
Mm.
no food, they'll pest anything. White ants, anything that they can find, they'll
But
pest.
I think that's probably yummy. I do love pested food. I think I would enjoy that. It's
I don't know
probably a
about
good
the
test.
grasshoppers though. I'm just scared.
Well, something feels weird until you try
Mm,
it. It's like telling someone
yeah.
I eat grasshoppers. Like the thought of it is disgusting, but then it tastes good in the mouth.
So while we're at the refugee camp, day one, they told us, you're going to first see what it looks like, how the people sleep, what the town
Mm.
looks like. And I was like, my gosh, how are they living here? Because they
Yeah.
are so packed. And they're telling you it hosts over 1 million refugees plus. And the food is supposed to be rationed. You realize that the government gives a certain amount of money to them, but then you find down the pipeline, they receive quota of what the government had either given, or it starts, or the government is given a certain amount of money, they cut it in like half and send. Then by the time you reach, you're getting like a tenth of what was supposed to be given. So that time we were doing counseling of the victims of the war. So
Okay.
we had been trained at school to handle the counseling, to be prepared to do the
Mm.
counseling, and also to train them in a skill. So what the skill I learned was how to make reusable sanitary pads from the things you have at home.
Mm.
The old
Mm.
clothes, a Macintosh, or like that baby, that plastic thing that they use for babies to sleep on, the
Mm.
Macintosh, and
Mm.
cotton. And show them you can sew
Mm.
and make yourself a reusable pad that you can use for maybe 6 months, because buying pads is expensive. And
Yeah.
then I met a lady who's had a child with disabilities, and she said her child almost died because he's deaf and he couldn't hear the gunshots that were coming. So she had to physically run back into the hut that was burning and rescue him out. There are other people who with disabilities who died because during the war, who is going to pick someone with a disability unless it's your family?
Mm.
You're deaf, you can't hear
Yeah.
what's going on. You're just seeing people running. You don't know how to
Mm.
move.
Yeah.
And also other
Yeah.
gut wrenching stories that I would not want to hear. But at the end of it all, I realized how bad war is. Because people tell you war is bad, but it's really, really bad. And the effects of it is terrible. And we also, as Africans,
Yeah.
don't do a lot well with like handling PTSD, because you find people,
Mm.
some man his entire family was killed in front of him and he couldn't do anything. You're now sending him to a foreign country for support, and then his all he can do is drink his sorrows away, because there's not he feels
Mm.
empty. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my 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 decision then was, how do I help people in this kind of way? And
Mm.
in my head I was like, how do we make it stop? because of course you find out in wars there are people who benefit from it, and there are those who suffer. So now it geared up my passion for human rights more. Other people are like, we can't deal
Yeah.
with this kind of trauma, because even when we came back,
Mm.
we had to go through counseling for all the things that we had heard and listened to. And
Was this
so,
something that you
for,
did while you were still in school? Like while you were
yeah, this
still
was still in
studying?
school. This was like first year,
Wow.
ending first year. And then COVID
Whoa.
happened.
That is a very scary introduction to the world as a university
Yeah, they're like,
student.
you have to be sure that you're ready, because this is the
Yeah.
world you're going to face. And that's what our
Wow.
dean had said, you have to be ready. And he told them,
Mm.
told us, feel free to drop out. I wouldn't blame you. So I came back fired up. I was like, okay, now let me start thinking about the research I want to do. So
Yeah.
throughout that time, I had developed an empathy for people with disabilities, and I prayed to the Lord and I said, God, I need to know how to help these people, because I have met people. I have friends who have brothers with autism, or I've also done
Mm.
like volunteer work with people with with schools, international school of the deaf,
Mm.
and seen how parents really struggle with educating their children and stuff like that. So
Mm.
when I prayed about what I should do as a research for school,
Mm.
God put it on my
Mm.
heart to research about the education system, and specifically for people with disabilities.
Yeah.
And so my passion for that, and I felt like that was now a new purpose. First was human rights as general, and now we're
Mm.
coming down to
Education. Yeah.
the
The
specific people I
disabled.
wanted to deal with at that
Mm.
time. So I remember
Yeah.
I had a very vivid dream about creating an entire center to educate them with a proper curriculum, because they are judged as in Uganda's curriculum, they are given the same PLE with no children, which is not fair. But they're
Yeah.
just given maybe 30 minutes extra time to do the exam. That's the only thing they'll do. But yet I feel like they need a different curriculum for it. So the dream that God had given me that time was I had created an entire a whole school for special needs, but with a special curriculum that I had sat down with people to create, and we had
Mm.
introduced it to the Ministry of Education. And you can use the fact that you can use music for an autistic child to come out, because I have a cousin with
Yeah.
autism, and he learned how to play the saxophone, and he was
Mm.
able to learn how to speak through using
Mm.
music.
Yeah.
And so I decided, no, let me do a research on Uganda's education system for people with
Mm.
disabilities. Let's look at accessibility itself.
Mm.
So through that time, I entered different schools within Kampala, and I was just like, wow. When you even look at that, the teachers who are supposed to be teaching special needs in schools, they're not
Yeah.
paid by the government, because I was doing government schools and also some private. The
Mm.
ramps are very steep or non-existent in the school. There are no
Mm.
toilets for them. How are they going to go to school? And then you go to the parents, and for them, they'll hide their children who are disabled because they feel ashamed.
Yeah.
And I was like, we need, they also, parents need support groups as well, for where they can find
Mm.
healing.
Very
So
true.
now
Yeah.
in my area where I stay at home in Mutungo, I met with the youth group there, and they actually have drives for people with disabilities where we sit down, parents sit together. How do we help you? You know, we do
Mm.
counseling for them, because it's hard, it's expensive to find a good school for them. So we have support groups for them where they sit down, they talk. We have tried engaging like the MPs in for Nakawa as to help us like advocate for better schools. If you look at Tinda School of the Deaf, the facilities are really like they were last improved on in like in 2005, and they have a lot of children. Some parents come and just drop their children and disappear. So that's one of the projects I'm doing. And then during COVID, like I said, we went to West Nile and saw all this happening. And
Mm.
my friend, she's called Miriam. She had that vision. And that's when I learned about purpose partners. You find
Yeah.
that in a season, there's a season God will put you in, and you find
Mm.
that the same heart you have for a certain section of people or a certain topic, you find he connects it to another person who has the same inclinations. So
Mm.
me and Miriam had sat down and she was telling me about, the poverty that's affecting West Nile and all the problems that are happening. And then then she met another girl called Amanda. And during the time she was at fellowship, and Amanda is also from West Nile. So they both had the same vision. Somehow they both had the same vision. Amanda is an engineer, but this is where God
Wow.
was leading. But she's a mechanical engineer, and this is where God was leading her. So they
Mm.
sat down and were like, you know what? Let's build Vine Anchored, and we started it as share skill. And from there, God gave us, Vine Anchored as the name. We're anchored in the vine that is Jesus.
Wow, that's a beautiful
And
name.
that's where we started from. Now started doing the research, find learning about what poverty actually is, and then coming up with how do we reconcile people to those the 4 points, the 4 types
Yeah.
of poverty. So last year we officially launched.
Mm.
We officially launched with Dr. James Magara. He's a dentist, but also he deals with like kingdom prosperity, and he has been teaching people about how to transform the nation in a godly fashion. So he has been mentoring us, he has been talking to us about how best we can do. And then God also connected us to a lady called Catherine Ranger. She's a lawyer and she's also an entrepreneur, and she is a missionary as well. And she works she's at UC with her husband. And they have been teaching us also about how best we can go as how do you organize yourselves as an organization. So this year we have an event to fundraise for we have a new curriculum. We call it the Dominion curriculum. So it's going to involve the discipleship and also skilling. And we're
Yeah.
working with reverends and church leaders within Madiokolo. And because we realized the reverends are not prospering, their congregation will not prosper.
Mm.
If they're not being equipped as well, because we know reverends here in Uganda, especially in the rural areas, don't get a lot of money. They also depend on the offertory that people give them. So you find
Yeah.
someone has brought a chicken to give to church, and that's what's given to the priest. But
Yeah.
now, when they are retiring, they find they have no house, they have no
Mm.
land. They have been stealing either from the church because they have taken their children to school.
Yeah.
So now also training those reverends to
Mm.
also enhance their skills. Because in Uganda, we have some priests that are not paid by Church of Uganda because they
Mm.
have their own skill sets. So they're not
Mm.
called the non-stipendiary priests. And for them,
Yeah.
they have their own businesses, they're engineers, they're architects, but they're also reverends.
Yeah.
So I've been
Yeah.
also talking to them and asking them, how do we help your fellow
Mm.
reverends who are serving God about so this year, our
Mm.
launch is on 2nd November at Hotel Africana.
Mm.
And all I can say
Mm.
is it's happening by the grace of God.
Yeah.
because because we have had like a few issues with financing and trying to find donors for our to support our project, trying to find partnerships, and we got one,
Mm.
but also we know we need more because of the work we are doing, and we have plans to
Yeah.
build an innovation hub, a model farm for the community so they can see proper practices in how they can learn how to care for their animals. For now, we have
Mm.
50 disciples, in Opereni.
Mm.
It's within Madiokolo,
Mm.
it's with the Opereni Church. And
Mm.
we can see that their minds are opening. We can see that they now know who God is. They fellowship with each other. We have brought reconciliation with each other, with them, because they had been having resentment towards each other. And somehow, through the discipleship throughout the year, we have
Mm.
seen people reconcile, marriages come back together, and we bless the Lord because we know
Amen.
that it's a very slow process, but we have learned to trust God's processes in this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this year's theme for our launch and fundraiser is building a kingdom ecosystem in Africa, and we will
Mm-hmm.
be having Dr. James Magara again speaking to us, but now we're planning for 100 people. I will send you the
Mm.
link for registration, so that
Yes,
anyone who
please. Yeah.
watches can be part. And
Mm-hmm.
so one of the objectives of the event is to raise awareness about
Mm-hmm.
Africa's positioning and role in kingdom establishment and wealth creation.
Mm.
Because
Mm.
if we do research on what Africa actually is, what actually Africa has, we
Mm.
have the minerals, we have fertile land, we have fresh
We
water,
have
all
the
the things that we
resources.
have in this
Yeah.
country
Yeah.
alone is enough
Mm.
for us to be ahead of in America.
To
It's
build.
just that our brains
Yeah.
have been
Yeah.
locked into dependence. I've seen how um different types of, or there are different ways NGOs work, and one is either a needs-based
Mm.
community development way, or you do a community-based or an asset-based community development approach. So what us we're doing is
Yeah.
asset-based. Asset-based looking at the skills people have and teaching them how to
Yeah.
enhance them
Yeah.
and create wealth, because most of these NGOs create a
Mm.
dependency on people. Now just wait
Yes.
for the
Yes.
NGO to
On
bring
them.
them food,
Yeah.
wait for the NGO to give them
Yeah.
soap, and yet you can become independent and do it by yourself. They
Yeah.
just need to be what's the word? We have to be empowered is the word. Yes, empowered. And I
Yeah.
believe through the different work I have been doing, even while I've been working with Anchored, I've been working with another organization as a volunteer called Choose Yourself International. And now for that one deals with like sexual reproductive health rights. And it also has helped me know how an organization is supposed to go, because the skills
Yeah.
I'm learning from them is the same skills that I am teaching to my friends who are working with, but also teaching to other people. I've also been able to work with children and
Yeah.
teaching them
Yeah.
about public speaking. And I believe that God is training me
Mm.
in to for a specific purpose. I don't know what it is yet, but I'm seeing that there are different skills that I have been learning.
All
Yeah.
right. The internet has really disturbed us, but I wanted to ask one final question.
Mm.
As you look ahead into your future, how do you see your purpose and contributions growing? And what role do you think platforms like She Center can play in supporting women through this process of discovering and evolving their purpose?
That's a good question. Um, where I see myself going in my purpose is, one, I'm still discovering myself, so I'm
Mm.
willing to learn anything and everything. Recently, I learned
Mm.
stuff in procurement because of a project I'm part of this year. But
Mm.
I know one thing is, with everything I discover about my purpose, I find a mentor.
Mm.
That's one thing this year I
Mm.
had dedicated. I was like, God, I know this line of now working with PR and communications for Vine Anchored is where
Mm.
you have put me. So I need mentorship
Mm.
in this field. And so I have found mentorship in
Mm.
that. I found PR experts, people who are very conversant in the communication sector, and I'm learning from them.
Mm,
But also just
mm.
building my skills through learning, and YouTube has been my teacher. And universities that have like guest lectures, I have been plugging in to find out, what's new out there that I can implement. But also
Yeah, yeah.
prayer. Prayer, I cannot stress it enough. Praying to God,
Mm,
reading your Bible, finding people to fellowship with is really important, because the people you meet are the ones who help, who can help you figure out
yeah,
yourself. And also not being afraid to ask. I've learned to be bold. Because normally I'm always shy about talking
yeah.
about what I
That's a
like to
very
do.
important thing.
So learning boldness and approaching people who,
Mm,
in my head, I'm like, I'm not worthy enough to
mm,
approach this person. I'm not very qualified to approach these people, and just putting myself there. I've joined book clubs, I've
yeah.
joined different spaces. For like I joined the
Mm,
Amazon females leaders initiative. It's by a lady from South Africa,
mm,
and she connects different people
mm,
from different countries, and mostly women. She supports women.
mm,
So I've also been able to plug in and find people there. And so I ask questions of
mm.
how can I be mentored in, maybe, let's say, organizational leadership, because that's where I want to go now. I want to learn about, how
Mm.
can I be a good leader in an organization if I want to build my own after I live in Anchor. Because I still have that dream that God
Yeah.
gave me at campus to help people with disabilities. How am I going to accomplish
Yes,
that?
yes.
So
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
decided to surround myself, even just being on She Center. It took
Yeah.
a lot of courage to come out
Yeah,
and
it
be like, you
does.
know
I'm
what?
glad that I pulled you
Let
out.
me get myself out there. Hopefully through
Yeah.
the people who watch.
Yeah.
You
You
never
never
know the
know who
next
might
person.
listen. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whoever listens in, I never know who I could find. So I'm not just open
Yeah.
to whatever is happening. So for She Center, we can partner with
That's
She
really good.
Center. We are willing to partner with
Yeah.
different people, as an
Yeah.
organization, but also as personally, I'm willing to partner with She Center with the things
Mm.
that you need to do. Because what we're doing is
Yes,
also helping
that's
people
true.
discover their purpose. And since
Mm.
She Center also aligns with our mission and vision, we're able to partner. What kind
Mm.
of events
Yeah.
can we organize? Whether in Uganda,
Yes,
whether
that's true.
wherever we are, what can we do?
Mm.
We
Yeah.
can set up fundings and all that, taking people back to school if they need to be. Those are all the things that I have in mind. It's just I need to organize my brain. Because I realized also
Oh,
with
that's
ideas that I have,
mm.
it's like all a thousand ideas can come at once, and now I'm learning
Yeah.
to prioritize.
Write them
What's
down. Yeah.
what can I can maybe do research on every idea and say, okay, this one will be in the next 5 years. This will be in the next
Mm.
3.
Mm. Mm.
And even
Mm.
as we
Yeah.
launch our strategic plan this year,
Mm.
as Vine Anchored, we're going to launch. We are also seeing in 3 years we want to have an innovation hub app. We want to have events in
Mm.
different parts of this country, still talking
Yeah.
about what we do, and also partnering with
Mm.
Church of Uganda, different churches,
Mm.
because we are Christian
Mm.
based. We want to be able to
Mm.
partner with churches who are also in line with
Mm.
helping people develop. The president himself
Yeah.
has talked about churches don't just preach about, giving and all these things.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
You need
also
to
have
make the
you are
change
the
to be the
center
change. Yeah.
of how people
Mm.
can be sensitized on how to also better themselves and develop the nation. If you look at the
Very true.
history of Uganda, the East African revival, where there's a lot of mass people getting saved, they were also the priests were the ones who taught them how to look after their cows well. You must have a toilet. You must be clean. You must be organized.
Yeah.
This came through the
Yeah.
churches, and we're trying to bring that back. And
Mm.
so, hopefully, with time, we can have an event where we know we are partnering with She Center and partners of She Center
Very
to
true.
bring this to bring this to completion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very true. That's very true. And one of my future goals is to have something like this
Mm.
where, because when I started out, when I was looking at all this, like you, I was like, you're so overwhelmed with this big vision that you have. You're like, I can't do
Mm.
this. Like, I don't have this experience. What do I
Yeah.
do? But it's always important to start where you are, the people you have around you, and learn from them. Because, like you said, you learned about procurement. I didn't know anything about content creation. So I realized it was something that was starting to be a limitation initially.
Mm.
But I found that, when you're praying, if God has given you a vision, you have to understand that He will also provide what it is that you need. So along the way, in the past year, I'm learning so much, and I figured this platform that I want to start, I have the vision in my head, but also you need to do research. You have to find out, is this really necessary?
Yeah.
And that's why I had to make the shift from asking people what happened, because initially I was like, I know what's happening with women in my society. I've grown up seeing people, so let me just tell the stories because I know, but let me let other people know what's happening in different people's lives. And now it's about purpose, because I understand that when you see someone doing something, there is a lot of knowledge and wisdom you can glean
Yeah.
from them
True.
to find
True.
out how have they gotten to where they are, what kind of challenges are they facing, so that in case you're also out there listening and you're going through the same thing, you can be like, oh, okay, that's very impactful and this is
Yeah.
helpful. So I figured I need to shift from telling people's stories and now actually focusing on what people are
Yeah.
doing, no matter how small it is. Even if you're a house girl, even if you're what, like, do you find purpose in what you're doing? If not, how can we help you? Because at the end of the day, when I launched the She Center platform, because right now I'm in the process of working on the website has been developed, but I need to try to see if everything that I have gotten into my head is something that makes sense, by kind of doing this research and asking people, okay, what do you think is necessary, so I can put out a product that actually makes
Yeah.
sense and that is relevant, and not just coming and saying, yeah, I want to do this. Yeah. So of course, the first thing that I thought of is partnering up with people who are already doing the work. I don't need to go to Allure. I don't need to go to Google. I don't need to go anywhere if someone is already there. Like, we don't need to do the same thing. All I have to do is to not only empower you, but also to partner up with you and find out, okay, how can I help as a person? Because what I want is a digital platform where all of us who are doing something to help women come
Yeah.
together and be able to, learn from each other and help each other. So definitely that's something that I would look forward to doing, and I will attach the website and your event that's coming up, so that whoever is listening out there, never know. I always tell people, Bill Gates might be listening to my podcast,
Yeah.
guys. Never know. Never know. Like, someone might be like, okay, I'm interested. I want to partner up with Alythia and Vine and whatever they're doing. But thank you so much for the work that you're doing. It's really amazing. And I am always happy to see, like, younger people, younger than me, of course, who are doing something, because sometimes we get so lost in the stuff that's happening around us
Yeah.
that we put on the side the things that matter. And then later on in life, that's when we'll be like, oh, hey, let me catch up with where I left my life. But it's good that you're in discovering yourself, you're also helping other people, and you're trying to figure out how to make a change in this world.
Yeah.
And that all stems from what happened to you. You have experienced bullying, you've experienced something painful, you've seen how the other half of, the people who are vulnerable and who are going through the abuse or whatever, what they have experienced and how they feel. And by the time you go to talk to someone and they're telling you, I'm experiencing bullying, you're like, it might not be the same equal measure,
Yeah.
but I know how you feel and I want to help you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you so much for the work that you're doing, and I appreciate that. So we look forward to seeing what God has in plan for you in the future. Please help me spread the word by sharing our episodes with your friends, family, and followers. Let's amplify the voices of women, break barriers, challenge stereotypes, and create a network of support and empowerment. Together, we can bring about positive change and make this world a better place for all. This is She Center, the female podcast, where women's stories matter. I love you all. God bless.